On a cold night in April, over 1,000 people went to sleep on the safest ship ever built. Some of them never woke up. This is the calm story of the last night of the Titanic, the ship they said could never sink. It was the morning of April 10, 1912, when the Titanic left Southampton, England. The air was cool, and the harbor was full of quiet excitement. Families stood on the dock, waving goodbye. Some were going to America for a new life. Others were simply traveling for pleasure, unaware that this journey would become one of the most remembered nights in history. The ship itself was massive, over 800 feet long, with 4 towering funnels reaching into the gray sky. It was, at the time, the largest moving object ever built by human hands. Inside, the Titanic felt less like a ship and more like a floating city. In first class, passengers dined under crystal chandeliers, their conversations soft and unhurried. A small orchestra played gently in the evenings, filling the halls with quiet music. Nobody rushed. Nobody worried. The ship moved so smoothly across the water that many passengers said they barely felt like they were at sea at all. Below, in third class, families sat together in simple cabins, sharing stories of the new lives waiting for them in America. Children ran along the lower decks during the day, laughing under a calm, open sky. In the engine room, far from the quiet elegance above, workers moved steadily between the massive furnaces, keeping the great ship alive with heat and steam. Days passed peacefully. The ocean stayed calm. And the Titanic continued forward, cutting quietly through the dark Atlantic waters. On the night of April 14th, the sea was unusually still. There was no moon. The stars stretched endlessly across the sky, reflected perfectly on the flat, glass-like ocean. High above the deck, in the crow's nest, a lookout named Frederick Fleet strained his eyes into the darkness. The air was freezing, and visibility was poor without moonlight to help guide the way. At 11:40 p.m., he saw something. A dark shape, rising quietly from the black water ahead. An iceberg. The warning bell rang. The ship's officers reacted quickly, turning the wheel hard, trying to steer the massive vessel away. But the Titanic was too large, and the turn came too late. The iceberg scraped along the ship's side, far below the waterline, where no one could see the damage happening in the dark. For a while, most passengers didn't even realize anything was wrong. Some felt a gentle shudder. Others heard nothing at all. But down below, water was already pouring into the lower decks. The captain was informed. The ship's designer inspected the damage and delivered the quiet, devastating news: the Titanic would sink, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. The radio operator began sending distress signals into the night, hoping another ship was close enough to hear. Slowly, calmly, the crew began preparing the lifeboats. Families gathered on the deck, many still in their nightclothes, wrapped in blankets against the cold. There was no panic, not yet. Just quiet confusion, and a growing sense that something serious was happening. One by one, the lifeboats were lowered into the dark water. Women and children were guided in first. Husbands and fathers stood back, saying quiet goodbyes, many believing they would simply wait for another boat. There wasn't one. As the ship began to tilt, the small orchestra kept playing, filling the night air with soft music, even as everything around them was falling into chaos. The Titanic's bow sank lower and lower into the black water, until finally, the stern rose high into the night sky, a massive silhouette against the stars. And then, quietly, the great ship slipped beneath the surface. The ocean, which had been so calm all evening, grew still again. In the lifeboats, survivors sat in silence, wrapped in blankets, staring at the empty space where the Titanic had been just moments before. The night passed slowly. The cold Atlantic air settled over the lifeboats as survivors waited, unsure if help would ever arrive. Just before dawn, a light appeared on the horizon. The rescue ship Carpathia had received the distress call and traveled through the night to reach them. One by one, survivors were lifted aboard, wrapped in warm blankets, given hot drinks, and finally allowed to rest. By morning, the news had already begun spreading across the world. Newspapers printed headlines that would be remembered for generations. Over 1,000 people did not survive that night. But the story of the Titanic has never been forgotten. Not because of how it sank, but because of the quiet courage shown by so many, in the final calm hours before the ship disappeared into the sea. And even now, over 100 years later, the ocean where it happened remains just as still and quiet as it was that night.